Awesome. Thank you everyone for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot to cover and I want to make sure that we deliver value and don't keep you guys waiting. So as I mentioned, hello everyone. Welcome to Power Playbooks. My name is Sarita Dua. My esteemed co-host Vija Williams could not be on the call today, so I am running solo today. And we have an amazing program for you. Before I jump into the program, I do want to let you know Power Playbooks is every week on Wednesday at noon Pacific time. Our goal is to interview true rock stars in the real estate industry that are doing innovative and amazing things and are willing to share details and detailed playbooks on what's working for them in today's market so that you can walk away with tactical guidance on what to do to take your business to the next level. So thank you for being here. Please make sure you register for future webinars. They're every Wednesday at noon Pacific time. And with that, I'm very excited about today's program. Today, we have two guests. We have Ramon. I'm going to always butcher it, even though he always tells me how to say it. Casaus and Tiffany Lachnidt.
There it is.
Did I do it right, Ramon?
Got it. Spot
Perfect.
on.
Ramon and Tiffany are joining us, and we're going to just introduce them here in a second. And today we're going to talk about innovative and creative seller programs, how to offer a variety of options to your sellers on how to sell their home, particularly if they may be reluctant to go through traditional listing methods. We're going to talk all about why and how and what programs exist. And our goal is no matter where you're at in your business, whether you're a brand new agent or a veteran that's been doing this for a couple of decades or more, you can walk away with a nugget or two that can apply to your business, either a creative program you want to roll out or even creative messaging or stats that you might want to share with sellers to get them off the fence and into action today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce each of our panelists. Ramon, let's start with you. If you can give us a brief intro of yourself, your business, the locations you're in, and kind of how you got started.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Ramon and my birthday's tomorrow. So I'm super excited to head out to Mexico, but I got started in real estate in 2017. And, long story short, everything in between, selling a house maybe every other month at best to selling more than a house a day, and everything that comes in between. I started my career in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and in 2022 expanded into Denver, Colorado, and Scottsdale, Arizona. So our team is about 45 agents, give or take. And we're in those three markets. And super excited to talk about this particular topic because I think that, as we all know, like those who list last, and this is a very important part of strategizing around your listing component of your business.
I love it. And Ramon, it didn't go unnoticed to me, and I'm sure it didn't to the audience. 6 years in the business, 3 locations, over 40 agents. It just goes to show you, like, you can be anywhere in 5 or 6 years from when you start. So anyone who thinks I missed the boat on this, or it's late, or I don't know how to reinvent myself. 6 years ago, you were selling, like you said, infrequent homes, and here you are selling over one a day. So it just shows you your incredible trajectory for success. So thank you for being here. Let's go ahead and actually introduce Tiffany so that way we can get both of your input when I ask questions. Tiffany, go ahead and introduce yourself, a little bit about your team, how you got into business.
Yep. So I am Tiffany Lachnidt. I cover most of Southern Colorado, kind of south Denver and south of there. I've been in the business for 19 years, and I actually did the most growth in my business during the big crash that came between 2008 and 2012, which was where we really learned that we had to get a lot more creative with how we were going to sell houses because we had so many distressed people and we had so much uncertainty in the market. So that's when we actually shifted into our guaranteed sale to give homeowners that sort of security that if they did sell, if they did list, they would actually sell. And we've had the opportunity to sort of morph around that as we've gone through the changing markets, because in every market, it can be painful to sell your house. It's not something people dream of doing. It's the buy part that they love. And so that's sort of how we landed that. The market that came after that was a little more challenging for us because we were used to hard. So I'm kind of excited to get back to hard a little bit. But I've had a team for 18 of the 19 years I've been in business. We're sitting at about 15 people on the team right now. And about half of our business comes from listings. That's always our target, to at least split those two sides in half. So
Got it. So 50% seller-based business. And I love what you said about, you would think intuitively people want an easy market. And I'm hearing you say we literally, it was an inflection point for your business when you were in a hard market. And that's when you saw growth and you're kind of excited to get to the point where that you test your chops and you can set yourself apart in terms of differentiation in a harder market where other people may not have what it takes to be compelling and have lasting market presence. So I'm excited for this market and to learn. The other thing you mentioned is guaranteed sale. And we're going to talk about exactly what that is in a minute. But what you said, and I couldn't agree more, is just your value proposition changes with every market, and what worked in one market, even if you take the same program, dust it off and re-implement it, you have to always tweak and change to the market that you're in. And to be honest, to the one you're going into, right? Skate where the puck is going. And so I love that you acknowledge that, hey, we started with this and things keep changing and we keep changing. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah. There was sort of that messy middle between when the market was correcting down and it started correcting up, where we had a little bit of the uncertainty, but we didn't need a lot of these really creative programs until we got into this major inventory crunch. And then we had sellers that wouldn't sell because they were afraid they didn't have anywhere to go. So we just modified the programs that we offered to meet whatever that need was, and really changed how we manage our clients by meeting to where they are, rather than forcing them into the real estate box that they had traditionally been forced into, which is prep your house, list your house, wait for it to go under contract, and then hope and pray that whatever you really wanted was on the market. And if not, you kind of get stuck with whatever's left.
Right. Well, and let's take one step even before that, which is in a hyper seller's market. Like your marketing plan was, I just put it in the computer and I wait for my phone to ring, right? And now we have so many reasons why that doesn't work. Sure, that could happen where you list on a Friday and you have multiple offers, but for the most part, you've got low rates, you've got people that don't know where they're going to go. And even if they want to take advantage of a market that may favor them with a lack of inventory in certain markets, they're stuck. They don't really know you don't know your point B until you can kind of figure out your point A and what your options are. And so it's very important to provide options. So I love that. Let's jump into, like, we've alluded a little bit to programs, including naming some of these programs. But before we even get to programs, because this webinar really isn't about, here's all these great programs, try them all. Let's get into the mindset of a seller and why. You kind of alluded to, hey, it's a tough market and we have to provide value and we have to get sellers into action. But what are some of the reasons why a seller may want to sell and they don't want to necessarily list? Let's just brainstorm together some of those reasons on what you're seeing out there with real clients today on any hesitancy regarding what I would call traditional seller marketing. Ramon, do you want to start with a couple of ideas there?
Yeah, sure. I think, especially here in Phoenix, some of the most common ones we see are somebody unfortunately did list their home prior and, the pricing strategy wasn't very up to date. They were still pricing from a year ago. And they kind of went through the whole song and dance of having a home on the market for 90 to 180 days. And to be honest, they're tired. They just don't want to do it again. The other one that we find very common is, just the whole, and this is people who haven't even listed their home prior. They just really have they're just not willing to get the home ready and do the whole preparation. Sometimes there's repairs and things that just a lot for them. And I think that that's the most common we get in Phoenix. And I think it really just comes down to the energy it takes to get a home ready and then hopefully get it sold in a week or so.
That sounds great. Tiffany, you want to add any?
I think we've been Amazoned, for lack of a better term, and I hate to promote them, but they've created this, hey, I want to tell Alexa that I want to sell my house and have it sold. So I think the easy button, and you go to try to find a used car today and it's near impossible to find something that's not owned by a dealership. So I think the mindset of consumers is they just don't want to have to go through the work. They just want to make it easy and they're willing to pay for that service. And I think as a real estate community, we've done a really poor job of meeting the client in that space. And we just lead with, we'll get you the most money and we'll get you the most money. We'll get you the most money. And here's the laundry list of 400 things you have to do to get there without ever asking the question if that's important to them. And I think that's a big thing. But obviously there's illness, there's distress, which is starting to come back as people that are behind on payments and they've got to get out, but they still have equity. And I think equity is a big thing that came up in the last 7 years, is that people had so much equity that they were willing to maybe take a little bit less because they felt like they were playing a little bit with monopoly money. But for us, it's usually the convenience, don't know where they're going, the distress, I just don't have time in my life. I'm getting ready to list my house. If you guys haven't sold a house in the recent days, I'm shocked that people pay us to make us go through that, because it's a hard thing to do with kids and businesses and animals and all those things. So I think there's, the obvious list.
HGTV didn't help us either, right? Like the people
No.
don't live like they do when a home is for sale on a home show. And, you made such a good point, right? I think being in the business, sometimes we have these filters where we assume they want maximum return. And I'm just a personal example. I'm selling my daughter's car and I called the dealership and you mentioned cars, right? And within a second, sight unseen, I had a bid. I know I can get about $1,500 more than the bid, but I have to do a service that I didn't do. I probably have to change my tires. I have to detail it. And I don't want to take any of that time. And so people assume, like, why would you do that? You're going to take less money. It's like, literally, it was done before I started. Time and controllable outcome is really, really important to many people. And we just sort of assume that it might just be money because that's the yardstick that we often are so used to.
You know what, Sarita, there was a light bulb that went off for me around the exact same concept. It was about a year ago, actually. We had sold a relative of mine. We had sold their home and they were kind of downsized. It was a temporary downsize. But long story short, he's a little bit older and, they do have a job, they have jobs, 9 to 5s. And it was a lot for them to move. And I remember we went to lunch after the fact and I asked them, I said, hey, I have this partnership with this company called Open Door. Here's what they do, right? Long story short, you're going to take a little bit of haircut, 10 to 30% of the equity. You probably wouldn't receive that. It would probably be an offer, probably about 70 to 80 net out percent off of what we just sold it for. But you would not have to lift a finger. It's a 5-minute video walkthrough. You don't need to get the home ready, no repairs, no inspections, no appraisals, no nothing, no showings. It's a done deal and you can change your closing date within a 90-day time frame anytime you want. Does that sound, was that something you would have considered? And after moving, they told me, yeah, I mean, I think we probably would have. And that's where it occurred to me that, wow, look at this is a prime example of somebody who completely would have taken the convenience, the less work, and the more controllable outcome, which I think you said they would take that over the equity that they essentially forfeited for that service. So yeah, I mean, I've seen that time and time again, but I like what you said about controllable outcomes. I think that is a big factor in the decision-making process.
Well, I want to make sure we cover two important things, the what and the how. So I want to know essentially what are the different programs that you're offering, either their formal programs or their concepts. And then maybe with Ramon, let's start with you on the what, and then Tiffany, I'm going to go to you with how do you position this with sellers, and what are the conversations you're having with sellers in terms of tailoring them to what your seller needs. So let's start with the what. You mentioned Ramon, in your market, Open Door, right? Just a quick cash for your home. And then we mentioned anecdotally guaranteed sale. Just if you could list out a few of the programs that are out there, whether they have formal names or just concepts. And by the way, just disclaimer, asterisk, and anything else. The goal on this webinar is not to necessarily endorse or push one program over the other. We're just here for awareness, because these are the things that you should be talking about. And if you're not talking about them, your competition is. And it's being aware of all the different options and making sure we can tailor what exists for our clients. So Ramon, why don't we start with, some of the programs or options that you offer to sellers?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the first one is a concept program, whatever you want to call it, we call Sold in 7. And essentially what I did, and just a little bit of background, is I really went and researched all the different guarantees, who's doing what in the market, learn from a bunch of different concepts across the country. I really took the things I liked about each one and put it together. But the reason I did it was because, if anyone who has a team, I challenge you to do this, is ask your agents, hey, what makes our listing service different? If they can't answer that in a very quick 2-3 sentences and be 100% sure what they're talking about, I mean, that's what the competition is. So like, how are you differentiating what you do versus the other 3 listing appointments that seller's having? Like, how is it clear as day? This is the different value proposition I have outside of the baseline, which I think, everyone knows really what the baseline is. And so that's where I said, okay, we have to have something that's different. And so the sold in 7 concept is really a play on marketing, where we make some strategic adjustments on how we list the property in the first 3 days. We essentially consolidate the showings, we consolidate the activity. We have little nuances, like, for example, we show up with a cash offer, either investor offer or open door offer. First things first, we give them that option, say, hey, we're really going to choose between this or we're going to go the traditional route. So we provide an option up front. And then the second component is we always say we solve the two biggest problems. Number one, the longer your home's on the market, the lower your perceived value is, right? We do not want to be caught in that category. And then second is lack of representation. So we create a couple different things for our sellers. Number one is a term sheet. So we iron out all the terms that are most ideal for them. Those are presented to all the showings and all the buyer's agents before they make an offer, so they know exactly what we're expecting on our terms. The second one is that if possible, we show every single client, we show every single buyer's agent the property. We present the home. Now, different price points are going to depend on this, but anything that's considered luxury in our price point, we will present the property to every single person that comes in the door. And then second is we're getting real-time feedback from those people because we're in the home and we're communicating that to the seller same day. So I think we take, again, the 2 problems that we say we solve in our process is one, longer your home's on the market, the lower the perceived value. And number 2 is that we actually represent you through this transaction. We don't just put up a sign and see what offers come in. And that's been really successful for us because we essentially give them a time frame of, hey, statistically in 7 days, we get offers at or above the price that you're asking with the terms that you want. And the very worst case scenario is at the end of 7 days, we'll know exactly why we haven't got an offer yet. Like, we will for sure be able to communicate that. And at that point, if we decide it's not worth working anymore on this project together, we can go ahead and end the relationship or extend the contract. So that's our sold in 7 concept in a very, very fast, I don't know, what was that, a minute and a half nutshell.
I love it. You're doing things that others aren't doing. Anyone can do what you said, but the way you're packaging it, you're setting yourself apart and you're giving them options up front, and you're taking away that doubt of, I wonder, it's one thing to say to a seller, look, I'm going to sell your house, but I will tell you, if it doesn't sell, you're never going to wonder that your agent could have done more and didn't, right? You're kind of taking that doubt away, that you're truly presenting that house and getting feedback. Also, I heard an implication there too, where you're not doing a long-term commitment, right? It's like, hey, sold in 7, we're going to know at the end of 7, it won't be the marketing or the effort. It's going to be the house or the price. And at the end of 7, we're going to make an adjustment. And if you don't like where we're at, we're happy. Like, we're willing to bet on our results based on our experience.
And so it really comes down to, it's a no risk scenario, right? If you're willing to give a week of your time, right, all expenses are covered. It's not a long-term contract. And we give our agents the autonomy to decide, like, if it's an area that, this is going to be a little bit more difficult, it's not your traditional home, like, don't sign a 30-day listing agreement, right? Like, they have the autonomy to make the decision and say, okay, we're going to sign this one for 60, we're going to sign this one for 30, whatever the case is. But we like to let them make those decisions on the fly.
Well, and that's a really huge caveat. It's not one size fits all. You
Correct.
can have a core thing that maybe 90% or 80% of the sellers will fall under, but at the end of the day, you have to adjust based on the specific situation.
Correct.
Anything else you want to add on other programs you offer? Otherwise, I'm going to switch over to Tiffany.
No, I would stick with that one. That's the one that we find the most successful, and we can adjust to almost any situation.
Cool. Well, and I'll just say drunk money, drunk monkey, or limiting belief. You didn't talk about having to buy their house. You didn't talk about some sort of crazy thing that's on a billboard or TV. Like you're essentially putting yourself in your seller's shoes and figuring out what their pain points are and addressing them up front. So I appreciate that. Tiffany, let's switch to you. If you want to highlight any programs beyond what Ramon suggested, as well as how you're actually matching what you have to offer, your toolkit, with what the seller's needs are.
So I think for people who aren't offering programs like this, I'm going to go back to when I started, which was I was terrified to start. Like in 2007, I think was our first guaranteed sale commercial we ran, or 2008. And I thought, I can't buy all these houses. Like I don't have that much money in the bank. And it's not about wanting to buy the house, because we don't have any bad houses. We have bad owners and bad agents. So if you can control the price and you can control the condition, why can't you guarantee the sale of the house? And it just helps put in perspective for the seller, which is, okay, here's the terms of the program, and this is what you have to do. And at the end of the day, we know it's going to sell because we're going to match. We're going to make sure we take control of those issues. We're in one of the few industries where we spend tens of thousands of dollars marketing a product we have no control of. We can't control how it looks, how it smells, and whether or not we actually have product to sell. So why not put those standards in place? And when I understood that, it was freeing for me, because I knew if I could control the transaction, I didn't have to buy the houses I didn't want to. So we put parameters, which is we don't, no mobile homes, that kind of thing, because in your market, you can't guarantee whether or not that's going to sell. As we morphed it, it really becomes a conversation starter. So even if you're afraid to offer these or don't have programs and they're asking for them, dig further into the questions of why, which is, why do you want a cash offer? Why do you want to buy a house before you sell a house, and figure out where their pain points are? And rather than overcoming those pain points, find somebody to partner with. There's tons of, national companies that are offering some of these programs, and at least stand side by side with your seller as their partner to help them maneuver through those programs, because they're going to go find them on their own. And they are more than welcoming to have you come and stand beside them to help them figure out what all this paperwork means that they're getting in front of them. So we step through it. We offer cash offer. We offer a buy before you sell. We offer a trade-in. All these names kind of sound gimmicky. They're not really gimmicky. It just means we're going to change it to how they want to move through the process. Start with the cash offer. And if the numbers don't make sense for them, we can always go into the buy before you sell, which helps them get their sort of ugly house empty and ready to go to help them make more money. So we offer a big stack, and we offer a menu of services, but we only apply the menu of services based on what they need and based on the feedback. But the questions are what really reveals that seller's pain points. And I think sometimes it's really hard to get to the seller pain points because they don't want us to know. They think that they're sort of negotiating against us. And what I do when I sit down with them is I say, look, there's 100 different ways for me to sell your house. My goal today is to figure out the best one for you. And I'm not going to ask you to do anything that you're not comfortable with. And you can physically see them sort of relax, because they're coming into a cash offer guaranteed sale presentation thinking that they're going to get taken advantage of. And that just helps them understand that we're just here to help them figure out what's best for them.
That's such a huge aha for me, right? I can imagine a seller kind of going like this, like, okay, why should I listen to you? And I think an analogy for those of you that work a lot with buyers, right? You can't represent a buyer if you're not on their team and understand what they're willing to pay, what they like about the house. The more they're open with you, the more you're a team and you're really going after what works for them. And I think that's a very similar analogy on the sales side. If they view you on their side and they start sharing what their pain points are, their fears, their, true, like, hey, how much do you owe on the house? Like, are you behind on payments? Like, what's going on with taxes? Are there any liens? What's going on with the fact that, maybe it's a divorce and half the furniture is gone, and like, how do we fill in some of these holes? What's the narrative, right? And to be able to get them to realize that the more open and willing they are to share with you, the more that you can craft a solution by offering the right option for them. And so the other thing you mentioned that I just really loved is conversation starter. To have something that might be controversial or daunting at the beginning, like, hey, I'll buy your home. Like you said, the minute you realize that you can actually control the equation and make it work so that if they follow these rules, you're guaranteed that you're actually never even going to get to plan B, but the plan B makes sense because there's a whole bunch of rules and parameters and constraints that they needed to follow and that we all agreed on in terms of presentability and what properties fit and don't fit in the box. I think that's really key. When, Tiffany, do these conversations happen? Do they happen in a pre-listing on the phone? Do they happen in person when you're talking to them? Like, how do you actually get them to open up? And when does that magic happen in terms of them sharing what's on their mind?
I think it depends on the lead source. So if it's a cooler lead source, we ask the questions and then approach some of these in person. But most are calling me asking for it. A lot of my lead sources make it so that I'm getting as close to a come list me as you can get, saying, hey, I heard your guaranteed sale program, or heard you offer cash offers, or tell me about this program. How am I going to get scammed? And then they kind of chuckle because they know me. I've been on the radio for so long here that I've got a reputation in town as being a credible agent. I spoke with a seller this morning that was a cooler lead source, but it was a cash offer kind of request. And he said, I know this is going to be a scam. And I just diffused it and said, look, I've got 50 programs. Let's just learn about your situation. And I'm going to figure out how to solve your pain. And that might be getting you the most amount of money. It also might be telling you that now is not the right time to list. And I think going into it with that, my goal is not to make you list your house if you don't want to, or sell it to me. He went from being a kind of a grumpy old guy to being open to having a conversation next week. And I think that's the important thing, which is, hey, these programs are designed to help you. They're not here designed to help me other than my desire to help you get where you want to get to. And it diffuses that.
I love it. And you took the word right out of my mouth. You diffuse the situation. And so they call you kind of skeptical, and you basically essentially are the Baskin Robbins, if you will. Like, I have all these flavors. You don't have to have just vanilla. Like, let me listen to what you want. And I have a program for you. And so I just need to understand if we can get you to keep your house, if that's the issue. Like, I'm going to be here whenever you sell, if it's today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now. But my main goal is to understand your pain points and make sure I have something that will address those pain points to get you where you want to go. And so they feel like it's not adversarial, and that you really are there to help. I love that. Advice for someone who's just getting started. Like, you guys both have experience in doing some of this. For those of us who just want to put our toe in the water, do you advocate partnering with cash investors, with nationwide programs, or is it just essentially understanding how to have a really good pre-listing or listing dialogue where we kind of uncover pain points? What's the first domino, if you will, in terms of how to get started and getting innovative with seller programs?
I think this might tie into Rosie in the chat. It might tie into her question a little bit. For me, it was looking at what are the things that we're doing right now that we're actively pursuing, that are bringing in listing leads, and then how can we convert those at a higher level? And so our team, heavily prospecting based and for sale by owners and expired listings, that was what it came down to, right? So like, well, how can we take the pain points that are most common that these people are going through or have already went through? How can we how can we come up with a program that solves all those pain points, and then that we can convey in a very clear way, and maybe even a short-winded phone call, which a lot of times that's how they start, right? For sale by owner and expired listing. So we really built it around how can we just convert at a higher level on the things that we're already doing. And I think for us, where do you start is you just kind of start putting the pieces together slowly. I don't think you need to unravel this big master plan, right? I think you just start, we're still adding things and changing things as time goes on. Tiffany sounds a little bit like she's been doing hers. She said you had 50 of them. So clearly you've been doing this for a while. We have one that we're building off of. And I think it's just really putting pen to paper and start writing out the actual script, the wording, so you can first start and convey whatever it is that you do in I always say 1 to 2 sentences. Like, it cannot be more than that. It has to be that clear, and then reverse engineer it from there. And I would try to gear it towards where you're actually pulling business from right now, not some new venture, and then build on it from there. That would be my advice. And that's what we did.
I love that. Tiffany, would you add to that?
Number one, reach out to your broker to make sure you're not going to violate any state laws. And you have to be really careful with that because of the way the contracts are written. But But number two, find somebody in your market centers, in your marketplace that's doing this, and just ask them if they'll partner. Because on the first couple, you really should be with somebody who understands the roadmap to do this. But then we have investors all over the place. We have all kinds of local cash people that want to write offers. We will write offers. If it's a property we really want to take, we'll usually write a really high offer. But yeah, go find somebody to partner with. That's one thing I love about real estate is even in your local communities, there's always somebody who's willing to help you. Or if you don't know anybody in your local community, connect with somebody who's in another market. But all you have to do is go Google and you can go find agents who are doing this and then go find the nice ones to help you walk through it.
Well, and I don't mean to just blow you guys up with unnecessary praise, but it's honest and genuine praise. You guys both have one thing that I'm seeing in common, which is forget all the programs. It's confidence, the confidence to know that you're the best person for that seller because you empathize with them, you put your feet in their shoes, you feel their pain and you want to help them. And isn't that what every agent wants to do, right? And so we can get quote unquote gimmicky with whatever creative program, but the reality is call it whatever. Like even Ramon, with your sold in 7, you're not doing something that's drastically different. You're packaging it in a way where you're getting their attention. You're doing this sort of blitz early on, but you're also so confident in your results that you're like, hey, you mentioned it, you have nothing to lose. And so with Tiffany too, with your breadth of programs, it's like, you're confident that whatever pain that they have, there's a program that you have that's tested. And that if you didn't know it, you learn from someone in your marketplace or someone outside your marketplace. We all know we get on planes to shadow people. People call all the time saying, hey, can I come to your marketplace? I just want to hang out with you, or we see them at conferences or whatever. And we will do that for each other, right? And so just feeling like you are the best option for them. And then the options that you bring to the table are truly designed and vetted for their particular situation. That confidence comes out. And I think that's exactly what sellers need. They feel very unconfident, and to know that they are working with an expert who's been there before, has testimonial after testimonial, and ways to get them out of what predicament they're in to get them to the next step.
And if you don't have testimonial after testimonial, when you do it like 1 or 2 times and it actually works, and the thing you created and devised and the seller gets exactly what they want, like you will find that confidence that we're talking about. You don't necessarily have to have 10, 15 years track record to have the confidence, but once you watch it happen in real life a couple times, like the light bulb goes off and you start understanding the possibilities with what you've created.
So one last question I have, I know we're kind of wrapping up here on time. How do you handle the shifting market, right? Like, I know we talk about tweaking an option, but like even your sold in 7, Ramon, or Tiffany, some of your programs where you knew with guaranteed sale even, or with the buy before you sell, that the market and the appreciation would, definitely protect you on any downside. How are you handling it as rates are higher, days on market's higher, and even though there's inventory that it's just not a sure thing as it might have been in 20 or 21 and the first half of 22. Any insights there on kind of how you're changing your message for the market?
Sure. I guess I'll knock that one out first. One thing that we do every company meeting we have, which is weekly, it's called Market of the Moment. And we pull up the actual statistics, and you're right, Sarita, Phoenix, yes. Listing inventory has been cut in half from last year. Average days on market has doubled, and the absorption rate has gone up by 15%. Not a ton, but it's still gone up. So what we do, and for myself, for the team, for everybody, we go over those statistics every single week, and we take a pretty solid half an hour explaining them and walking through scenarios that, how would you explain this to a seller? How would you explain this to a buyer? And just play out the scenarios using the data. But going back to what I loved what Tiffany said early on, it's like, if you know that if you price the home right, you make sure it's prepared well, and that you make sure that when somebody sees it online, it looks presentable and nice and it catches their attention, it'll sell. So why can't you guarantee the sale? I love that you said that. It's the same concept, but it usually comes down to pricing, because we can always get the home ready. We can always make sure it has beautiful photos and marketed well online and great descriptions, but it comes down to the price. So I would say for us, handling the shifting market, it always just comes down to pricing expectations, in my opinion, most of the time. So what we do is just make sure that we can use that data to convey why it's important today to not use last year's pricing. Use today's pricing, because this result will still happen in any market. But we just have to be realistic about what this home is going to sell for. And like Tiffany said, maybe if the net out is not what you want it to be, maybe now's not the right time. And I think just having to have a really good pulse and talking through that data and those scenarios on a weekly basis, you and your team, and then translating it to a seller on why pricing this way is important.
Love it. Tiffany, anything to add?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Urgency right now, going into fall, and just asking the question, like, is there going to be a major hardship for you if you don't sell until next spring or early summer? Because we think this fall is going to potentially see some declining conditions. So really just fleshing out, is now really the best time for you to sell, and not pushing people to sell just because we want to get a listing, but preparing them that the worst may be, worse conditions are in front of us, or who knows, the yield started getting better today. We could see rates drop and then everything goes nuts. But yeah, being really conservative, like Open Door, somebody commented that they've just gone down the tubes the last few months. It's because they know that they can't predict what's coming in 6 months. And a lot of these, institutional buyers have been kind of bit by what's happened in the market, and they're not going to continue to get bitten. So if you watch what they're doing, you can use them kind of as an example.
Right. And it's easy if you're going to get bit to know that the market appreciation is sort of going to save you. But when you can't bank on that, it's a different game. And I love, both of you said this without even maybe realizing it. You guys aren't tied to the outcome. You're telling them what's going to happen if we do something now. You're certainly going to point out some concerns you may have about the future, but if they don't pull the trigger now, you're going to be there for them whenever they're ready. You're just giving them, this is what it looks like today. And if this doesn't work, I'm going to be here when you're ready. But depending on what their needs are and what their urgency is, there may be a reason for them to it's compelling for them to act now. But neither of you have that mentality of, I got to go into this appointment and I got to sign this listing and, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it. It's doing whatever it takes for the seller to have their needs met. And if it isn't what you're saying today, it's then staying in touch with them. So when they are ready, they're going to call you. Perfect. Any last comments you want to add? Otherwise, that was my last question. And this has been super valuable. And I can't thank you guys enough. If you have any last closing remarks or tips, feel free to share them now. Otherwise, we will sign off.
I agree with Ramon. If anybody has questions, feel free to reach out through Facebook, Instagram, or text or anything like that.
Same. Happy to help.
Both of these agents are amazing and giving. The fact that they spend time not only today, but even on a pre-call with us prepping for this, and they're doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. So really appreciate your time. They are a great resource. Feel free to friend them on Instagram, Facebook, etc., and reach out to them if they have questions. And as always, we strive to come up with amazing content for you week after week so that you can take your business to the next level with detailed playbooks on exactly what's working. So tune in next week, Wednesday at noon Pacific time. Thanks so much for watching.